Working on an existing building is a serious challenge. There's so many things you have to look for that even I didn't think about until this week. Things like what to do with conduit lines, how to rewire lights for separate rooms, and making sure people can't talk to someone in the bathroom through a hole in the wall.
What?
Yeah, that happened this week. I'll tell you all about it. Welcome to another episode of the Weekly Wrap-Up. My name's Tyler, and I'm a designer at an architecture firm here in California. If you're new here, thanks for stopping by, I appreciate it. I post weekly updates of what it's like to work in an architecture office, as well as other videos related to architecture and design. So if you find that kind of stuff interesting, consider subscribing down below, and let me know what else you want to see from me. All right, let's get into this week's work. So I've been working on these 4 school projects, and I've shown a lot of the progress over the past couple weeks. Everything from when I first started and I had to draft the base plans, when we visited the schools and had to meet with the principals, when I had to redo the floor plans multiple times, when I started designing the roof canopies, and now up until the point where I've revised those roof canopy designs. Now we're getting into the nuts and bolts of things. We're moving into a phase of the project called construction documents. In a typical project sequence, this is the 3rd major phase. Before this was design development and schematic design. In these school projects, we skipped over the design development phase because the scope of work is pretty straightforward and we're on a short timeline for these. I've been talking a lot about the site work and roof canopy designs for these schools, but part of the work takes place inside the administration building. We're renovating the reception desk, the waiting area, the restrooms, and some of the offices. Now that we're into construction documents, we have to make our drawings as detailed as possible so that a contractor can price it and build it accurately. And since we're working with existing buildings, we need to be really careful to identify as much as possible on our drawings. So this week, I went out to 2 of the schools with the architect that I'm working with so we could do some measuring and verification. These are the 2 that I've been talking about that look the same at the entry. And we found a lot of interesting things that are important to look for before we get any further into the project. All of these things I'm going to share with you are really helpful to know when working with existing buildings. I wish someone told me this stuff when I was in architecture school, or at least when I first started working in the office. This is going to save you from making a lot of mistakes that, if missed, end up costing a lot of money during construction, trust me. At this first school, we're adding a wall to split the waiting room in half. This is pretty simple to do, but the issue it brings up is what do we do with the floor finishes now? The floor is this simple linoleum tile, but we have to tear some of it out so we can anchor the new wall down. You can't just nail it to the top of the floor. It has to anchor to the concrete slab below. So we have to decide if we want to remove part of the flooring and just try to match the same finish when we put the wall in, or we just rip out all the flooring, build the new wall in, and put in all new floor finishes. There's also this display case that's mounted on the wall in the waiting area. Not only does it interfere with our new wall, but it's not ADA compliant. The issue is that it sticks out too far, and that becomes a problem for a blind person that's walking with a cane, and they might run into it. I know, I bet you never thought of that one before, huh? We have to remove it and just hope the school has a different place to put it. This next one is something the other architect brought to my attention. In this room, we're adding a wall again to split it in half, but this time so we can make 2 separate offices out of this space. The way this room is wired, there's 2 light switches on either side of the room, and each one controls the lights for the entire room. This is called the 3-way switch wiring. So if we split this room in half as it is, someone shutting the lights off in one office would end up turning the lights off for the other person.
Hey, sorry. Thank you.
Not to mention that where the lights are in the ceiling will probably be an issue with where we place that new wall anyways. So we'll have to move these 2 so that way each office at least gets 1 light.
Come on, man.
In the bathrooms at this school, we're not doing any work on them because they were already upgraded recently. We did have to check for accessible clearances to make sure that someone in a wheelchair can use everything correctly. And everything checked out great here. Everything except the door. I know, another weird one. Probably think, what do you mean? I see it right there. There's a door right there. The problem with the door is that it's too heavy to open. By the code, it should take no more than 5 pounds of force to push or pull the door open. And this one took more than that when we tested it.
Open sesame!
But this is an easy one. All I need to do is adjust the closer at the top of the door to make it easier to open. At the other school is where things get really weird. Starting with the outside, we have all these conduit lines that are running at the top and the bottom of the windows. This wouldn't really be a problem other than the fact that it just looks ugly, except that we need to add a door on this wall so that there's a public entrance into the building. This means that we need to remove all the conduit lines off the wall and run them underground, which gets really expensive to do. And these lines run pretty far, all the way back to the HVAC unit. So this kind of sucks, but we have to do it. Inside, at the reception desk, we're removing the existing counter so that way we can change the layout of the room. What we learned by talking with the ladies at the reception desk is that the storage underneath the counter is really important to them. So in our new design, we have to make sure that we're giving them at least the same amount of storage space that they had before. To do this, I had to measure the total length of counter space that they have now. The first one is 19 feet long, and the second one is 8 feet long. So we have to make sure we're giving them at least 27 feet of space in the new design. Our new design is only about 24 feet long because we're doing a straight counter and we only have the overall width of the room to work with. So we'll just have to give them some extra storage somewhere else. So you can see there's a lot of windows on this building, and they're based on a 4-foot grid. That means that every window mullion is spaced out at 4 feet on center. So where we're placing new walls, we have to make sure we're putting them on the center line of those window grids. That's what they did in the original construction. Here in the bathroom, you can tell just by looking at it that it's way too small, even for a middle school kid, but it's especially too small for a kid in a wheelchair, so we have to upgrade it. We're taking out the walls, and we have to put back a new wall at least on the window grid 4 feet away. Luckily for us, this makes the bathroom just big enough for all the required wheelchair clearances, so we're good here. All right, I saved the weirdest one for last. So we're doing some work at the restrooms on the other end of the building. We're demolishing the men's and the women's restrooms, and we're replacing them with 2 gender-neutral single-stall restrooms. Where the women's restroom used to be will now be where those 2 new restrooms are. And where the men's restroom was is now gonna get converted into an office. No, not like that. A real office. The weird thing here is actually what happens outside. When we were walking around outside, we noticed these 2 louver panels on the walls where the men's restroom is. And when we walked up closer to check them out, we could hear our own voices echoing inside the bathroom. It was so weird. Basically, those louvers are so thin that there's almost no barrier from the inside to the outside. You can't see through them, but sound travels through really easily. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to be using that bathroom with someone standing outside talking to me or hearing me. That's gross. So we have to remove these and replace them with some more solid walls. I hope this helped you understand the challenges of renovating an existing building and maybe gave you some things to look out for. There's a lot more that goes into it than just a few drawings, even if it's a simple floor plan. But that's the importance of going out to look at your projects before getting into the details. Now, I have to get back to drawing the construction documents to make sure I coordinate everything that I saw with what's on my plans. But for now, that's gonna do it for this episode of the Weekly Wrap Up. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.